Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Downtown Kiwanis Club. Jeff is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Chuck, I thought I saw you, is going to lead us in, or give our invocation.
Would you pray with me, please? Help all first responders remain focused when they respond to an emergency. Help them to all work together as a well-oiled machine. Remind them to be their brother and sister's keeper. Help the fears of their loved ones, especially young children. Help the family members to trust you for the safety of their loved ones. Comfort the family members of fallen heroes. Remind the citizens of our great city to be mindful of our first responders, to follow their instructions, and to be appreciative of the commitment these men and women have made to our city. We pray to St. Michael and St. Florian, the patron saints of police and fire. Amen.
Thank you, Chuck. Please be seated. Before we begin the program, I do have a few announcements to make. First of all, I would like to appreciate two of our members, especially because they are celebrating anniversaries this week. Alex Sventekis, 6 years. Ronald Allman, 2 years. The Indiana District of Kiwanis is comprised of 24 divisions, each with a lieutenant governor who oversees clubs in the area. Roger Cummings is not only our treasurer, but he is also lieutenant governor of our division. The Capital and Indy Metro divisions get together quarterly to share their resources. The next gathering of the Metro and Capital divisions is going to be on August 24 at New Hope, which is at 86th and Michigan Road. The meal is at 5:30 and the meeting at 6 o'clock that evening. The food is free, as a matter of fact, but everyone who attends is encouraged to give a little bit of a donation. This is a perfect option if you can't fit a Thursday noon meeting into your schedule. Governor Taka Okada will speak at the meeting, as well as Governor-elect Bruce Andrews from Warsaw, who will also be visiting us on October 6th for our new officer installation. Riley Volunteer Coordinator Susan Schwartz will also be at the meeting to invite Kiwanians to serve as Comfort Cart ambassadors for a 3-hour shift every 6 weeks at a time convenient with your own schedule. The Comfort Cart provides amenities to families who are sometimes unexpectedly staying at Riley overnight with their hospitalized children. I have already signed up for this really neat volunteer opportunity, and perhaps some of you will consider to do so as well. Attendees at the meeting are encouraged to bring pop tabs and items for the Comfort Cart. We used to do that some years ago, and I've continued to do it. I must have a whole gallon of tabs that I'll take to that meeting. Riley will also be presenting during an online Kiwanis Night of Giving event tonight from 7 to 8 o'clock in the evening. And we can share the Zoom link to those who are interested in attending. Eric has a few things to say to us.
Thanks, Judge Carroll. And I had recently signed up to volunteer at the Comfort Cart also. There's a little consistent theme this summer of supporting Riley and selfishly supporting Mr. Baxter. So the golf outing this year will specifically be raising money for Riley. So as you know, this year's golf outing is Monday, September 19th. We're asking you to fill a golf cart so we can fill the Magic Castle cart. The Kiwanis Foundation provides an annual grant of $15,000 to support this initiative that Bob Baxter started in 1997. So with Bob being 92, we're not sure how much longer he'll be there each year. So Lou Drexler, looking at home on the Zoom link, please make sure you clear your calendar, Lou, for September 19th for the golf outing. As the club's immediate past president, I not only serve as foundation president, but also chair our nominating committee to ensure that the legacy of our club continues with strong leaders, including incoming President Trina Rautenbush and President-elect Nancy Albrecht. So following myself and Judge Carroll, we're thrilled to have Trina and Nancy leading the club in the coming years. I'm excited to announce that voting is open for the slate of officers to take us into next year. Look for a special email today that invites you to vote to approve this slate. We appreciate everyone taking the time to do so. Miss Laura Holloway, if you could please introduce today's speakers.
Hello everyone. My pleasure to introduce our guest speakers today. We have IMPD Officer Sergeant Kimberly Evans in the Downtown District Community Relations, as well as the Downtown Indy's Incorporated Director of Safety and Security. She was promoted to sergeant last year after serving IMPD since 2010. For 6 years, she has been assigned to the Downtown District, leading the charge and making our downtown a safe and friendly environment. She regularly meets with residents and business stakeholders to listen to concerns and work with our community to solve problems. Every day, police officers like Sergeant Evans see the darkest aspects of our society, of our city streets. Yet, it brings so much light to visitors and residents. They protect and serve. She was recognized with Visit Indy, the recognition of service excellence, in 2017 for her efforts. Please join me in welcoming Sergeant Evans.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that warm welcome. I truly appreciate it. I would be remiss if I don't introduce some people I have here with me today. To my right, you will see Officer Jeff Patterson, and I'll invite him to come up in just a little bit and say a few words about his efforts. And then Sergeant Randy Dodd, he is a familiar face to everyone downtown. I can honestly say that anybody that works, lives, visits downtown, they have all been greeted by Sergeant Dodd with a smile and his efforts. He actually is boots on the ground today out here working on Monument Circle. He does this regularly every week to keep our downtown safe and provide a presence for everybody who is working and visiting here. And so, thank you, Sergeant Dodd. He's also a fellow Rose Award winner, recognized by Visit Indy. I won't date him as far as his tenure on the department, but
Go ahead.
34 years. 34 years of service. And still going, so that says a lot. But so grateful for him, and he will be stepping out here soon to get back downstairs and help with the efforts on the ground. But I definitely wanted to bring these gentlemen with me today just so you could meet them. and hear a little bit about them. As far as downtown district, our district is led by Commander Phil Burton. Commander Burton and I have worked together during my time in the downtown district. Our downtown district is made up of about 91 officers, so we are the smallest service district out of all of the IMPD districts. We have 6 districts within IMPD. Our boundaries for the downtown district, the area that we cover for downtown dispatched runs and the citizens and businesses that we serve, we cover Morris Street to the south, 11th Street to the north, White River Parkway, Indianapolis Zoo area to the west, and then 65 Pine Street to the east. So that's a little bit about the area. We're inside all the interstates, if you will. But that is the area that our officers respond to. We are a little unique downtown as far as the services that we provide to the downtown business and residents and visitors, honestly, that are here daily. We have a foot and bike patrol unit, so many of you, if you work here or live here, are accustomed to seeing our bike officers. They ride, they are very avid riders. They ride about 30 miles a day. So they are always out on bikes. The feedback I get from our community stakeholders is they love our bike patrol. It's a lot easier to approach an officer and talk with them and start up that dialogue when they're on a bicycle versus being in a patrol car. So that is something that our chief's office has made an initiative to continue to support in the downtown district, and we're very grateful for that. They also, it gives them the maneuverability to be able to ride places like the Cultural Trail, the canal, the greenways, and other areas that we are responsible for patrolling. We work closely downtown with all of our local, state, and federal partners. So White River State Park, we have a lot more officers than what the state, the Capitol Police can provide. So we always work closely with them and providing mutual aid to them as well for really any incident that happens downtown. Our monument, the beautiful monument you see behind me, is technically state property, but we patrol that regularly and work closely with General Goodwin on safety and security at the monument. Another unit we have in the downtown district is our homeless unit. This is something that is talked about quite often when you hear about downtown. A lot of people, a lot of questions I get asked is what is going on with homelessness? Where are we at with homelessness? How is the city addressing homelessness? There are a lot of talks and dialogue right now as far as opening a low barrier shelter, something that we recognize as a public safety agency that homelessness needs addressed, not in an enforcement aspect all the time, but more that compassion, mental health aspect that needs more wraparound services. And so our homeless unit works closely with Eskenazi Midtown Mental Health, and then our PBSO, which is our Public Blended Street Outreach Team. So those are a network of providers that are committed to working towards permanent supportive housing and low barrier shelters, as well as resources, mental health resources that we can provide for individuals down here. Our downtown has gone through quite a bit over the last few years, as many of you are aware. It was really eerie when the pandemic hit. We are down here every day, so it was just strange walking, being out on Meridian Street and not seeing any people, any cars. It was just really odd to see that in our downtown. I'm very grateful because we're meeting here today, and it's wonderful to be back in person, to be able to meet, but also just the vibrancy that it creates just having people back downtown. Our workforce right now is about, I would say, 70% back in the office, which is helping significantly with our street level businesses. A lot of our street level businesses struggled quite a bit during the pandemic. We had many that were shuttered and closed, and those that are still here and remaining, they really need the office workers back to be able to help support that. And so being at 70% is really great. I work closely with Visit Indy with Leonard Hoops and his Susie Townsend and that team over there on conventions. Our convention business has been really strong. We're gearing up for Gen Con to come into town here in the next couple weeks, and we'll have over 60,000 visitors. So hosting big events is something that we are very accustomed to here at IMPD Downtown District. We work closely with our Homeland Security, and they provide us resources to be able to safely staff those events. Officer Patterson here, he teaches active shooter. Many of you are aware of the incident that just occurred, the tragic incident at the Greenwood Park Mall, and we're seeing more nationally what's going on with these mall shootings, with shootings in the workplace. We had the FedEx shooting here. So Officer Patterson, I'll have him come up in a few minutes and talk about, but he offers an active shooter class, which is free to any business or community group, anybody that may be interested in that. Another class he offers is situational awareness, and that is a class that really will help anybody as far as whether you are traveling or at home. It just gives you those safety tips to help build that muscle memory. If you are ever confronted with any type of danger, which we hope you are not, but that is a free class that he offers. And then in addition to that, verbal de-escalation. We all know that if we, the way we talk to people sometimes can determine whether or not that incident is going to escalate or whether we can de-escalate that. So he teaches a verbal de-escalation class that is absolutely fantastic. So those are all 3 classes that are free that we can provide from the downtown district. Our crime downtown, we account for less than 5% crime citywide. So the downtown core, we really have a very minimal amount of violent crime that goes on downtown. A lot of our crimes that we have are what we call the quality of life crimes. So those are the individuals that you may see panhandling, or the entertainment zones where somebody's had a little bit too much to drink, and our officers are responding to those incidents. More importantly, I think last year you were seeing, when we were having some violent incidents that occurred downtown, they were occurring in our Meridian Street corridor between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. And that, those one-offs that we were having were creating such a negative perception of safety for all of downtown. And it was really frustrating. I would get on social media and I could read the comments that people made that, downtown's not safe. When in all actuality, pen to paper, and the data tells me that that's completely false. So, but we have, perception is reality, and so we have to work with that. So our IMPD nuisance abatement team, led by Captain Boomershine and Lieutenant Bill Carter, we as a district worked really closely with them on the remonstrance of the liquor license of some of these bars that were not conforming to community standards and were having some violence in their facilities. And one thing I will say about downtown, we always welcome downtown business. We don't want to see businesses closed. We don't want to see empty buildings, but that we will hold those accountable that are for performing to those community standards and providing a safe experience for everyone. So it has been a challenge, but we, since we went through that process, I can say without a doubt that safety has improved significantly in that corridor. So I'm knocking on wood, but it has improved. Some other investments being made as far as technology. IMPD is just like every other police agency across the nation. We're struggling with staffing, with hiring new officers, and with retention. So people like Jeff and Randy, actually Sergeant Dodd just retired and is working in a reserve capacity now because he truly loves the job and couldn't just be at home. So, but a lot of people are, choosing other careers or just seeking retirement. And so we have to fill those gaps. And so one thing that we are really excited about in downtown district is the technology investments that have been made. We have our V-Link camera system. This is a private-public partnership. And what it does is it allows businesses to link their cameras, exterior cameras, not interior, but their exterior cameras to our IMPD IAC, our Incident Analysis Center. And what happens is there are officers in the IAC that are closely monitoring those cameras. So even though there might not be an officer staffed outside your place of business, there is an officer right there monitoring all those cameras, and then they will relay information to the officers that are our boots on the ground. And we've seen a lot of significant wins, especially I will say with the Meridian Street, right after we started going through the remonstrance process, we were still getting people that were armed, that were bringing handguns into our downtown, and so those officers were watching those cameras and relaying that, and so we were able to intervene and help mitigate those issues. I will say downtown changes so much during the day. This is the only district that, during the day we have business people here all day long. There's events happening on Monument Circle today. There's a fashion show out there. They're riding a handlebar into our circle. Lots of exciting things, events going on. And then usually like midday, people come downtown for dinner, and then late at night, it's entertainment and drinks and things like that. So our downtown does change a lot throughout the day, but overall our downtown safety, I can tell you many of our officers, downtown is a place that everyone wants to work. You have to have about 23 years on to get day shift downtown, so our officers are very veteran officers. And I know I've talked a lot, so I'm gonna open this up right now for questions.
Yes, when I was walking over to the meeting today, there was a person asleep on Washington Street. What is the policy of the downtown district on people sleeping on the street? How do you handle that?
So for those individuals that are sleeping on the street, what I would always, or sidewalk, I would encourage you to call and let an officer come out and do an assessment. Sometimes what we find is that individual may be way too intoxicated, maybe under the influence of some kind of narcotic, and so our officers will respond and determine if that person is in need of medical attention. If that individual is not in need of a medical attention, we have then our homeless unit and our MCAT unit. Our MCAT is new to the downtown district. That is a mobile crisis assistance team that deals with the mental health aspect of it. So we have a sheet that we do like a scoring, and so we're engaging those individuals and asking them where they are at in their homeless journey. Are you wanting services? For those individuals that are interested in services and they want to be engaged, we will start that process with them. For individuals that do not want to be engaged in services, and you know, if they are, you know, I say this, there's certainly a compassion piece to homelessness, but if they are committing crimes or, you know, causing problems, that's where we as law enforcement have to be that muscle that comes in and says, no, we're not gonna have that. And so we work closely. We have a good working relationship with our homeless community. Our officers know pretty much on a first name basis all those individuals, and we track them closely. We also have Andrea Demink with the Poorhouse. She is a not-for-profit, and she works a lot on the housing side as well. So I know when I talked to her last, she had taken like 48 people at one time to a hearing for housing. And you know, it's always a struggle because with COVID, with some of the CARES Act money, you know, it either is we have the money and we don't have the housing, or there's housing available and we don't have the money. So that's kind of a challenge too, and I think that's where the city is looking at as they're making investments for the South Downtown Vision Plan. So that's the expansion of Gamebridge Field House, the addition of the 800-room hotel going in at the convention center. A lot of investments are being made into downtown district, and so I know homelessness is at the forefront of that conversation, and how can we better serve our outdoor community to make sure that their needs are met, and then also make sure that everybody who works, lives, visits, plays downtown, that they feel safe when they come down here as well. Yes, sir?
To tag on to that question, are most of the homeless folks in town, are they stay here, are they stationary, are they transit out of Indianapolis? Do you see a lot of them over and over and over, or are there new faces regularly?
So we get new faces. A lot of our homeless community it stays here. Many of the people, and I say this sometimes because it's challenging and it can be frustrating, but oftentimes people that you will see, you know, in the medians and the intersections that are shaking a cup and asking for money, oftentimes, and I'm not saying everyone, but oftentimes a lot of those people are not homeless. And so in turn, you know, it casts a negative perception on the homeless community. Do we get new ones? Absolutely. I know just working with the Cole Noble neighborhood and Wheeler Mission, we have seen people that have been dropped off at Wheelers. Sometimes as part of their, you know, their release, they have to provide a address. And so these people that are being released, they, you know, sometimes have burnt bridges with everybody in their family and they don't have anywhere to go. So they're using Wheelers as an address, and we have seen in the past some of the donut counties drop people off at Wheeler Mission. So we are trying to foster those relationships to ensure, hey, we need to have a plan in place for those people, rather than just dropping people off at Wheeler Mission with no job, no income. You know, we all know what can come from that. So just making sure that we're having that constant dialogue with Wheeler and with our public safety partners as well. Yes, sir?
First of all, thank you for what you do. Is it against the law to panhandle and sit down in Monument Circle and want money?
So,
Against the law?
good question. So right now, there was the ACLU filed a permanent injunction against panhandling, stating that it was violating their constitutional right to free speech. So right now, panhandling itself, just we are not able to enforce from an IMPD perspective. Now that, if somebody is being aggressive, right? So they've made an ask for money and you've told them no, and they're now following you and they're aggressive, that we can address. But as far as panhandling specifically, we have not been giving any direction yet from city legal to say that we are allowed to enforce that again.
Just because they file a lawsuit doesn't make it the law.
Yeah, I'm clear. It just is, right now, until that we get different language, that's our policy.
Let me ask a general question, not about your district, but, violent crime or killings have appeared to gone up, in recent years. Why? Why is it so much worse now than 10 years, 20 years ago? What's happening?
So I think it's multifaceted. A lot of our offenders, and people that are trigger pullers, are younger people. A lot of this, I think, is, somewhat systemic from, there are, and I'm not saying every, every home without two parents, that their kids are not gonna be successful. But we have a lot of issues with kids that are, they are, left unattended, and also education, right? And then conflict resolution. People, I think now, really struggle with just normal conflict resolution. If we don't get along and we don't see eye to eye, used to, when I was growing up, people, the boys may have a fight, punch each other at lunch or recess, you had those type things. Whereas now, people are pulling triggers. And so, it's very hard to police people's hearts. If someone has made up their mind that they are going to pull a trigger to resolve that conflict, that's what's happening. And then also drugs, right? So we know that a lot of shootings involve, drugs and narcotics.
What percent or roughly is drugs involved with the shootings?
I don't have that data in front of me, so I don't want to speculate, but I mean, a large number of violent crime.
75%? Got a feel for that?
I can tell you this, when it comes to mass shootings, understand there's a difference between mass shootings and active shooters. My studies have shown that a mass shooting is simply 4 more people that have been shot. And a lot of those mass shootings surround drug issues, drug exchanges that went bad. Statistics, I'm not sure, but the studies will show that a large majority of mass shootings, there were drug issues involved.
So compared to the past 10, 20 years ago, is there more drug-related issues?
I think so, and I think mental health is a huge problem with this. We used to have 10, 20 years ago hospitals where when people were mentally ill or they were sick, there was a place for them to be able to receive services. And there are significant challenges just in my conversations that I've had with social workers and people who are invested in mental health, that there are challenges in getting people treatment. I say this, for example, a judge, if an officer engages someone that is having a mental health crisis, we have the ability to ID that person, so place them under immediate detention if they are a danger to themselves, a danger to others, and in need of immediate medical attention. We can do that. And then it's up to a physician, an evaluating physician, to convert that ID into what's called an ED, an emergency detention. And that allows these doctors more time to be able to evaluate and determine, is it inpatient therapy this person needs? Because what we see so often down here is people that are off their medication, right? So we've seen them on a good day when they're seeing their clinician and they are on their medication, they're doing okay. But if they've missed an appointment, not had their medication, they are picking up maybe a milk crate and busting out a window, and so I think mental health plays a huge part in a lot of some of the concerns that we have today too surrounding violence. I think it's a combination of the narcotics, mental health, and then just people being engaged in their kids' lives. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that parent that their kid pulled a trigger wasn't engaged. I mean, they could have been an awesome parent. Ultimately, it's up to that child to determine what action they're going to take. But in just some of the conversations and dialogue I've had, there's a lot of parents that struggle because these kids are tall and they're big and they are a lot taller than mom, and mom's working or maybe working 2 jobs. And so I think there needs to be significant investments made in education and pouring into people, and then also relying heavily on faith-based, right? So that's another piece that we work closely with our faith-based partners to try and ask their assistance too, because IMPD, we can't solve citywide, the crime and the violence. We don't like it, we don't want it, but it takes everybody getting involved and saying, we don't want this in our community and we're not gonna tolerate this. And that's why, like us being here today, I was telling her, these partnerships are so important for us to be able to, if there is an issue, we want, the broken window theory, I tell people that all the time. No matter how small it is, we wanna take care of those small issues before they become big issues. And so every district has a community relations sergeant. Most of them, the districts, every district has a commander. They're all willing to make themselves available. We want to make sure that from a policing standpoint, that we are giving the absolute best customer service possible that we can to our community. But in doing so, we really rely heavily on our community to be able to give us information. And then too, another part of that wasn't brought up is, you have people that, witnesses, right, that have seen a crime and know, but sometimes, won't come forward. Yes, sir.
I have a question kind of related to that. I've witnessed in the evenings these groups of teenagers, large groups, like 25 plus, and you can just tell that they are gravitating towards something that's going to become an altercation. You can just see it. But you also see them using their phones, their cell phones. They've got to be either text messaging or on social media. Is there some part of the downtown district that monitors cell phone traffic and social media, and how do they communicate with you in the field?
So our Homeland Security branch has an intelligence unit, and that would fall under Intel. So we constantly get information, not only with juveniles for social media, but protest, right? So we've had a lot of demonstrations at the State House and right here at Monument Circle over the abortion rights for the state of Indiana. So they're constantly gathering intelligence. And then two, we have our, believe it or not, we get a lot of tips through the 262 tips. People send in anonymous information. People send in information to our social media that are crime tips that help with leads. And really, I always tell people no bit of information is too small. Even if you feel like I saw something but I'm not really sure, call, let us know. That sometimes it's that just tiny bit of information that our detectives need in order to solve cases. Yes.
Do you think that when the assault weapons ban came to a close, when it expired, that a few years ago, that contributed to any big degree to the increase in violent crime?
I don't think so. No, I wouldn't think that. I don't think that. Yes, ma'am.
To go kind of along with what we were discussing earlier, a lot of young people do kind of gravitate towards downtown. There's a lot to offer everyone, whether they're events or just the places to go here. What is the district's accommodation for minors, and how do you help or work with them?
So we know just through being downtown and working downtown, 2 places are really attractive for kids to come, and that is the Circle Center Mall and our canal. Those 2 places are just historically places that kids love to hang out. And so our Circle Center Mall, we staff, in addition to it's now JLL down here, it used to be Simon, I keep wanting to say Simon. But in addition to their security team, we place officers in the mall that work in there in uniform on Friday and Saturday nights, I know for sure, and then depending on what's going on, if there's a shoe release or any, we have a really strong partnership with them, and so they usually will let us know this is coming, and so then we'll staff up for that as well. The canal, our bike officers, they ride the canal quite often throughout the day, and then overnight we have a partnership with the Department of Metropolitan Development, and they provide 2 IMPD officers to patrol the canal. From right now it's 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., but as it gets darker, as we start to get a little bit further along in the seasons, I'll bump that time up probably a little bit earlier to help accommodate with that as well. And so the Watermark community, talk with them regularly, and a lot of the canal condos that are along the canal. And then I sit on a committee with the White River State Task Force, just all those partners, just to make sure that we're working well with them and sharing data, both of us back and forth. So that helps accommodate and mitigate a lot of the issues that could be potential problems downtown. Yes, sir?
Do you still have horse officers?
We do still
I haven't
have
seen it for a while.
the mounted patrol. They are requested very often. They are in the process of trying to build a new barn, a horse barn. But normally they've been parking on Meridian Street under the bridge. I just saw them the other day. I know they've been in Lockerbie. I was at the Lockerbie neighborhood meeting and they said they saw them in there. So I know they get around through downtown. And then sometimes even on like Friday or Saturday evenings, they'll come out and just be stationary in front of the mall, right there in front of the doors there at Illinois and Maryland.
I had a follow-up question more for the classes that you said that you offered.
This is a good segue for you to come up here.
So the situational awareness training and the active shooter training, who can attend those trainings, or how can we get involved with that?
First of all, thanks for letting us speak here. I love Indianapolis, I really do. My wife and I spend a lot of time here. We love Mass Ave. That's one of the neighborhoods that we, every month we have a community meeting. We do crime stats. I love downtown. That being said, the easiest way to get a hold of me is, if you don't know my information, which I have cards, get a hold of Sergeant Evans. Sergeant Evans and I work together on community events and the classes. We can do classes for you guys. I have taught the U.S. District Court and Girl Scouts, and everybody in between. In the crowd, my thought is, if you can act as an adult for an hour, but then again, I know some 12-year-olds that can act as an adult, some adults who can't. But how much information is a 12-year-old gonna get when we're talking about mindsets? I do wanna lately, what I've been trying to do with the active shooter class is put people at ease. And I want you to know that although we had a terrible incident in Greenwood, the odds were against it. In 2021, which is so cool that we have FBI statistics this early in 2022. But last year, the FBI only named 61 events active shooters. Out of all the things you hear, and I don't want to play it down, but I think active shooter and mass shootings get conflated a lot of times. And so out of 330 million Americans, only 250 casualties were from active shooters. And I just say that to let people know that, don't be afraid to go out thinking that you're gonna be involved in an active shooter, because the fact is, in America, the odds of getting hit by lightning are 1 in a million. And the odds of being in an active shooter event are even less. But remember, we talked about mass shootings too. A mass shooting, by definition, is 4 or more people. And the odds of being involved in a mass shooting incident in the United States is 1 in 100,000. Is that saying you're never gonna be caught? Absolutely not. But you have to understand too that we can't live our lives in fear. And the odds of any of that happening with us are slim. The situation awareness class, Sergeant Evans talked about, it's something that you can apply anywhere in your world. The thing is, all 3 of these classes I've developed in a way that it doesn't scare anybody, but they give you solid ideas and tips on how to be aware. Let me ask you something. I got here a little early today. It was 11 o'clock, sir. I'm like, I'm here, Sergeant Evans. You don't have to be there until 12. So did anyone check on your sheet to see that $10 bill that I taped? No, you didn't. And why didn't you? But you didn't have a reason to, right? And my awareness class teaches that. People aren't aware because they don't have to be. Nothing's ever happened before, right? Now, how many of you are going to check under your seat when you leave? But the thing is, something will probably not happen, but the fact that we know that it might is a pretty good reason why we need to look. And once that becomes a habit, it's easy to do. So that's the simple part of the situation awareness. And the verbal de-escalation class is kind of morphed into a communications class as well. And not only does it give us as the attendees things to look for when we're talking with agitated people, but it also gives us things to look at ourselves for, to say, okay, what's my part in this conversation? What do my nonverbal cues say? What can I say as opposed to, it's not all their fault. You're my client. I want to help you. What can I do to help you? So it's a mindset that I teach in the verbal de-escalation class. And Sergeant Evans and I have talked about this. Our thought is, if you can see trouble coming with awareness, then you can avoid it. And you can't avoid it, maybe you can talk your way out of it. And if you can't talk your way out of it, you just kind of have to work the problem. So that's where we stand with the classes. And again, they're free. They're free classes taught by the police. I teach them all. You won't get different instructors. It doesn't have to be during the day. I've taught classes here for other organizations. But last night I had a class at a church at 7 p.m. So we don't like to start much later than that, especially in the wintertime because it gets dark and people, it gets late. But we like to start classes. We'll start them as early as you want to have them, and Monday through Friday normally. But I have a class coming up that I just scheduled in Perry Township on a Sunday after church. So that's kind of the spiel with the classes and how they work. Like I said, I have cards if you guys want to, if you have something to jot down. My email is jeffrey.patterson2. There were 2 of us, now there's just one. The other one retired. So jeffrey.patterson2@indy.gov, or get a hold of Sergeant Evans and she can direct you. I'd just like to get the dialogue started with emails, and then we can start scheduling classes. Any questions? Thank you.
First of all, Sergeant Evans, I want to thank you and your colleague for being a part of our luncheon today. It was very interesting, and I'm sure that I've seen you downtown. I love to come downtown, and I can remember, as a matter of fact, when I was a little girl, coming down all dressed up. In those days, you didn't come downtown unless you were dressed up. To LSRs with my mom to buy my Easter shoes or whatever. So thank you, and thank you to both of you. And to thank you for your presentation and for being with us, both of you today. We are going to make a donation in your honor to Amy Given Child Indy, which is an Arts Council of Indianapolis initiative to ensure that all 22,000 IPS K through 8 students have equitable access to the creative arts. And as a small token for your being part of this, I'd like to give you these certificates of appreciation.
Those are all of us.
Thank you.
And Chief Tony Williamson? No?
Thank you.
You're very
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
And thank you again.
Yes, thank you.
We will be back at the Columbia Club in 2 weeks to hear from Fishers Parks Director Sarah Sandquist, who will be talking about Geist Waterfront Park and the Nickel Plate Trail. Next week on Zoom, I say unfortunately because the computer and Carol Orbison are not the best of friends, but we will be on Zoom next week with New York Times reporter Trip Mickey. And thanks to Graham Honecker for arranging both of these great speakers. Have a wonderful end of the week, everyone, and we will see one another in 2 weeks.